Magandang makulay na araw, minamahal kong mga kabarangay. Ako po muli ang inyong Kuya Nono, inyong Direk Rene, dito po sa ating PSTV5 Online. Ito po yung segment na Teach Kapihan, kung saan ay tayo po ay nagbibigay ng mga butil-butil na mga impormasyon na makakatulong po sa mga nagtuturo dito sa Aotearoa, New Zealand at sa ibang panig ng mundo. Sa araw na to ay ating pag-uusapan itong tinatawag na Treaty of Waitangi. Ito po yung founding document ng Aotearoa, New Zealand. At ito po ay it transcends all aspects of life here in New Zealand. No? So kahit sa pagtuturo ay importante po malaman natin kung ano ang Treaty of Waitangi. At a few months ago, actually a year ago, ay nakapanayam po ang ating matalik na kaibigan, si Chris Ngalo. Siya po isang mental health advocate at founder po ng Step Up Now New Zealand. At pinagnilay-nilayan po namin at we analyzed ano po ba itong Treaty of Waitangi. Kaya minarapat po na mag-throwback tayo about the Treaty of Waitangi. Lalo-lalo na ngayon po ay the first day of August 2021. Imagine niyo, August na pala at Pilipinas nga next month ano na yun, bare months na. Kaya balikan po natin itong Treaty of Waitangi together with Chris Ngalo, ang founder po ng Step Up Now New Zealand. Maraming salamat po at kita-kita tayo muli sa iba pang edisyon ng Teach Kapihan. And we're live once again in Net Kapihan, Talakayan, and Chikahan. I'm your Kuya Rene here on our program tonight. We have a special episode, a special edition. And of course, it's special, so we invited our special friend, the founder and the Chief Executive Officer of Step Up Now New Zealand, Chris Ngalo. Chris, good evening.
Talofa, and good evening to anyone and everyone that's listening. I hope you're all staying safe.
Yes, we are now, we're emanating from Aotearoa, New Zealand in Auckland, and we are under lockdown. We're on level 3, Chris, right?
That's
and
right.
The rest of the New Zealand is under alert level 2 because we're trying to contain the COVID-19 community transmission. But tonight or this afternoon, if you're in the Philippines, or the majority of our viewers and listeners are right now, mabuhay, kumusta, is we're going to talk about the Treaty of Waitangi. Not really talk about it, but have a little bit of a korero with Chris. And first off, I'd like to ask Chris, because Chris has been to the Waitangi treaty grounds. I haven't had the opportunity yet, so can you tell us a little bit about the grounds, Chris?
I guess I had the interest after schooling here in New Zealand, and they talk about the Indigenous plight or their story. So I wanted to go to the place where they actually signed this treaty or this agreement between the Indigenous native people here, the Maori, and people from England that came over in the 1800s. So when I got there, I wasn't too sure what to expect, but I did kind of think that it was going to be a spiritually charged sort of landmass or area. And being Indigenous, I connected with it. I felt that there was a presence of something important that was there, a lot of emotion, and a lot of important discussions were made and agreed back at that place. So it does have a significance to the Indigenous people here and all New Zealanders, the Europeans or the white New Zealanders. But I felt the spiritual feeling of a place that a lot of our Indigenous people can feel or appreciate what I'm talking about.
It does something like that to you, Chris. Hey, I mean, if there's a deep-rooted, presence, which is like because we're talking about the Treaty of Waitangi, which is the founding document of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I can just imagine you standing there and feeling the 500 plus Maori chiefs who were there to sign, and then the British Captain Hobson was there, and in behalf of the Queen,
it would have been a big deal. I mean, there would have been people that were already translating for the British people arriving there. So there would have been some sort of translating and carrying on. But a significant thing for New Zealand, or it's a document like a constitution or something, that's a very important founding document of two nations working together. Especially with people that were coming to a place where people were already there and had systems in place, and belief systems and values and environmentally sort of friendly systems of survival and self-sustenance.
And it was written more than 100 years ago, but the effect and the vitality and the essence is still alive, is still present nowadays. And
I think for that comment too, Renee, to me it's like proves another point that the indigenous language often cannot be translated into a European language because it doesn't hold the essence of the meaning of some of those words, as it would reciprocated as well, but I think that was the crux of some of the misunderstandings or questions about the intention of this agreement and its elements and articles. So 100 years ago, we're still talking about over-representation of those native people in very important areas of life and survival and thriving and being on equal
in equal footing, yes.
For that.
And of course, being adult educators, being academicians, being teachers, Chris and me, we sort of put the treaty into like three not categories really, but just three parts, So the first part is what do we know about the treaty? And
so this is like a structure of your discussions if you want to establish prior knowledge with your own learners. You could ask the same questions that we're saying. Does anyone here know about the Treaty of Waitangi of Māori and European settlers in New Zealand? And you might be surprised with some of your students that have heard about it through All Blacks or whatever, the haka and all that sort of stuff. Where is it derived from? So it's quite interesting subject to delve into, and be aware. Get the outline of it first, because then you can think about the wording and how important that indigenous language was to have an understanding of two cultures, translating the same meanings of the intentions.
Because it was originally written in Te Reo Maori, right? It was in Maori. And so that's what Chris was saying. There was a little bit of a loss in translation, and the intent became a little bit, we will not look into that. We will just look into the treaty itself, and specifically how it we as part of the treaty, meaning that was written for us also, for those who will come to New Zealand. It was not just written for those who were in New Zealand already, but for those who will come after the you can say the framers or the signatories are long gone.
And more importantly, that gives you more understanding of what your role is as what they call it a tau iwi. So there's tangata whenua, people of the land, and tau iwi are people that have come from outside. So we fall into that category as foreigners, really, and we've settled here in New Zealand. We're all, New Zealand citizens, and we're contributing to society in a positive way. So, it's one of those things that I think is crucial for people. It's like studying formally about the context of teaching in New Zealand, So if there's anything you want to sort of pinpoint as a big picture kind of document, or a very important document that you will find, dare I say it, some important documents can be bastardized and used for, it's kind of watered down as lip service. And I think you will find it as an Indigenous person who is facilitating self-discovery or teaching like you are, to have this deeper understanding of Māori, their plight. Is it similar to what you've experienced or your people? And why is that important for teaching your learners to be whole, to be wholesome? you know, that stems, brings out this confidence, self-confidence, and pride that can be used for them.
So the first part there is what do we know? So
Yeah.
what do we know about the Treaty of Waitangi? So we already Chris was explaining about it's a document, you know. So I prepared a little bit of a slide for us to for our viewers to be guided by what we're talking. So I will just share it, Chris.
And
We're not
also,
lecturing. We're not going to be lecturing.
We're practicing our tech skills as well, and we've discovered something too. So, but what Renee's talking about is while people are watching, maybe you could just write down or make 3 columns. What do I know about the Treaty of Waitangi? What do I want to know about the Treaty of Waitangi? And then in the 3rd column, what have I learned? So you can just jot down some things that you know already now,
Yes.
and then start writing down, what do I want to know? And then that'll focus your pathway as to how deep you're going to reach.
Exactly. Yes.
So
Because one way or the other, the Treaty of Waitangi will be, you know, part of your life. The principles here, the things that have been written will be, you know, touching your life, whether you're a teacher, whether you are a farmer, whatever your job is, whether you're a student. So it's good that we get this opportunity to get a little bit know a little bit more about the Treaty of Waitangi. So you could see from the screen that I've shared that it is an agreement between Maori and the people who came to New Zealand. Okay, and the place of signing is that beautiful place in the North Island that Chris has been, which is Waitangi in the North Island. It was signed on the 6th day of February, 1840, more than 100 years ago. That's why it's a public holiday, right, Chris?
Yes, I think if you're aware, Australia has Australia Day, and it's a national day where everybody has a public holiday. So New Zealand used to call Waitangi Day New Zealand National Day. So Maori in their, you know, plight to be regarded as the treaty states, you know, governorship and, I mean, you know, looking after the land and the resources. They wanted the language to reflect what the day is all about. So, you look up National Day in New Zealand and Waitangi Day in New Zealand. There are some quite different sort of celebratory points in there. So, but it is Treaty of Waitangi is a public holiday.
Okay, and then it is the next slide. Okay, so it was we have this we base this on historical data. Okay, so Hone Heke was the first Maori leader to sign the treaty. So in behalf of the 500 other Maori leaders, and in behalf of the Queen, that time was Queen Victoria, the treaty was signed by Captain William Hobson. Now I know, Chris, that's why there's a Hobson Street in Auckland, and anywhere you go in New Zealand, there's a Hobsonville, Hobson, you know. So it's because of this person, Captain William Hobson, who signed in behalf of Queen Victoria. But of course, there were other Maori groups who did not sign also, you know, but there were 500 Maori leaders. And after signing in Waitangi, it was brought to other parts for the other leaders to sign. Okay, so that is a historical fact that we're talking about here. And then the treaty says that the Maori will keep their independence. They will keep and sell their land if they want to. We can keep their culture, and will keep everything that is important to them as a people, and will keep their rules for how they live. So it was a partnership. Remember, it was written between the Maori people and the people who came to New Zealand, who were the British. Okay, yeah. So moving on, the treaty also is important. Is that it also says that people from other places can come to live in New Zealand. Okay, so it was a partnership between the two, the British and the Maoris. But in the treaty, it says other people from other places can come to live in New Zealand. The treaty says that the Pakeha, European people, can make a government for themselves, but people from all over the world can bring their cultures to Aotearoa, New Zealand. That means they can keep their culture. And it is at present, Chris, isn't it amazing that we have more than 200 languages from different parts of the world living peacefully and in coexistence with the original settlers of New Zealand. And we see it in our classrooms, right, Chris? We see
Absolutely.
a variety, a diverse, not variety, it's not a product, but a diverse ethnicity. And we
Yeah.
even have a topic on that, which is diversity in the workplace.
Mm.
And this is where I was telling you guys earlier that the treaty is applied in the workplace, diversity in the workplace. And when we teach and we talk about diversity in the workplace, we touch on the treaty, why it is important, why everyone's culture is important. And when you talk of diversity, you have diversity in culture, ethnicity, age, special needs,
Gender.
religious beliefs,
Mm.
and all of that. And all of that is part of what was written in the treaty more than 100 years ago.
Mm.
And then moving on, how can I celebrate the treaty? This is where now we see that it's a public holiday. February
That's right.
6th, it doesn't matter whether it falls on a Monday or a Tuesday, it becomes a public holiday. I remember, Chris, I don't know which year, what was that? It was on a Wednesday. So you work Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday you have a
You have a
holiday.
day off. Yeah, it's great.
And then you go back Thursday, Friday. Unlike other holidays, they normally move it and then it becomes holiday on a Monday. But the
That's
Treaty of
right.
Waitangi on the day itself,
It's always
that
on
is
that date.
how important this document is. You know, on the day itself, we celebrate it. So how do we celebrate? So people, it's a day of celebration. So people go on a trip or they attend the different festivals and they go on picnics, wave the flag, and all of those things. You know,
Mm.
Chris, I remember when I was working in Hamilton, there were a couple of Waitangi days wherein we went to Ngaruahia. You know,
Oh, lovely.
Ngaruahia is like the seat of uh, the Maori king has his Turanga Waiwai Marae.
Yep.
And in the
Where he places his feet. Yep.
Yes, and then in the outside the marae and on the other side, there's a big football field, and there's like it's a whole day. There's picnic, there's music, there's so many things, and of
Mm.
course there is exchange of information
Mm.
because that is what is important for all of us to understand the importance of the day and
Mm.
how can we participate and do things during the Waitangi Day, and not only Waitangi Day, but we don't just celebrate it on the day because, as I was and Chris and I were saying, we live the treaty. We it's
Mm.
incorporated into our practices, into our teachings. Okay,
Mm.
and then probably I'll just end the presentation with how to learn. You can learn more about the treaty. You can read about it. But the best thing is to get or make a pilgrimage, as what Chris did. And I'm getting no longer younger, so
Yeah.
definitely going to the Waitangi grounds because there is the museum. There's so many things there that you could absorb and as I can just imagine, as Chris was saying, when he stepped on the grounds, he could feel the presence of
Mm.
the ancestors, those who were there on
Mm.
that February 6, 1840.
Mm.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
any place, even your own culture, there'll be certain areas of your country where you will feel, or
hmm
there's been an event,
hmm
whether it's a bloodshed or it's a wailing or it's a fellowship,
hmm
there's some sort of higher level of community
hmm hmm
appreciation or gratitude of your
yeah.
surroundings.
hmm
You feel that. I mean,
hmm
there's no doubt. But for me too, it kind of brought my interest in the culture of Maori and their plight to life. you know, when they're very ethereal sort of people, and they're very close to the land. They treated it very, very sacredly. So, you know, you feel all those things that a
Mhm.
culture has left behind on those
Mhm.
grounds,
Mhm.
and to think of how it built up to a,
Yes.
you know, that's an important thing for everyone as well. Is, you know, what do you want to know column? I would suggest you put
Mhm.
there what really happened, you know, in that day, because on that day, because there's a lot of you know, it's been a lot of time for it to be
Mhm.
reprinted, and there's always perspectives that people bring into the study.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I would encourage you to take an interest and see how it applies to yourself,
Mhm.
and how you deal with diversity, and how you communicate to your
Mhm.
diverse people
Yeah.
and sharing your culture.
And not only that, as offline earlier, Chris and I were even discussing. Oh, now, what is the meaning of the treaty now that we have this pandemic? You know,
Mm,
uh,
mm,
uh, uh, all of these things that's happening around us
mm,
is something to do with the treaty. Remember, it's the founding document of our of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
mm.
It's not just it's not like 500 people and Captain Hobson decided to write something, and no, but it's something that is alive, and it's practical. You know,
Yeah,
Chris, there's a saying that the young people, or let's say us, who came after the our ancestors,
yeah.
can see farther because we stand on their shoulders. That there's a
Of
saying.
giants. That's
Yes,
right. Yeah.
yeah,
If I can see far, I'm stand because I stood on the shoulders of giants.
yes,
And that
mhm,
appreciation is part and parcel of this Treaty of Waitangi. So for me, in my experience, I'm interested in the structure and the articles of participation, protection, and, you know, all the things that happened where there were mistranslations, or they
mhm.
did a lot of research on how it was formed and the intentions. But for me, it's what happens now. So if I'm interested in these indigenous people, and what they put together in their language about a union, a unity, kotahitanga, standing as one for the betterment of both cultures. How does that apply to me now? Is that I take an interest in the tangata whenua, because I'm interested in my own culture. I want to know what their language is about, what their culture and protocols and things
Mhm,
that will help me in a
mhm,
New Zealand context with Maori and you know, the treaty partners. So we are the tau iwi. So we're guests here.
mhm,
And for
mhm,
me to be the best guest that I can be in another person's land, or what I've made my home, is to respect those treaty partners as well.
mhm,
You know, so it's how we put all this knowledge and understanding and empathy into our practice. And it makes you a better Kiwi teacher, because
mhm,
you're inclusive, aren't you? It comes naturally to us to go, oh, come here, you know.
mhm,
Well,
mhm,
what language is that? You know, you have a natural curiosity because of the opportunity of this Treaty of Waitangi and us being partners,
mhm,
not you know, people that just come and go. They're called
mhm.
tourists. But if you're going to come and you're going to settle here, then I think it's a really good
Yes,
founding
yes.
document for ourselves.
Mhm.
It protects
Exactly.
us as guests in this place, and
Yes.
a union with the tangata
Mhm,
whenua, and, you know, the people that they had made
mhm,
this treaty for
mhm.
as well. They
Yeah.
are tau iwi as well.
Mhm. We
So,
become part of the treaty. We become part of everyone because this is
yeah,
everyone's treaty. I
yeah.
remember, Chris, when I started teaching here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, I knew about the treaty. I read about it, but it still was there was still something missing. So
Mm,
the missing part, I guess, was when I started talking to the elders, talking to people who knew about the treaty, who knew about experiences. They were not Maori. They were not they were like me. They were migrants too, but
yeah.
their experience enriched my understanding of the treaty. And so
Yeah.
I became a better teacher, a better
Mm-hmm.
person, and a
Yeah.
better citizen for New Zealand,
Yeah.
because the treaty is the framework. We came here and it accepted us. So it's
Yeah.
up to us. How can we also enrich now our existence here?
Yeah. Especially if you're facilitating learning, you know, in a teaching learning situation, then I think it's naturally to feel like if I'm going to use all my knowledge and skills to impart this knowledge for the betterment of my student, then that should include my genuine interest in Treaty of Waitangi, the culture here, and how I compare what their models of health and education are with mine. It's very similar to mine, but with the Eurocentric or European system, it often makes it doesn't work for me. So maybe if we compare it to our own practices and see that works for you as well, then you already got an advantage of working in a place like New Zealand and teaching about about the history. It's not bastardized, not watered down, it's not lip service. It's actually what you will feel when you hear about the what it built up to an agreement. There's a lot of stuff that's underlying that you will get a better understanding of where it went from the signing onwards, and that's the here and now. So it's a very interesting study. And what I love about it is that you can talk to people about it. You can start sharing and getting more information about it. Yeah, you'll really appreciate your practice with Kiwis as well, because a lot of our younger generations are either blended families, and you'll have some Asian or African or whatever other nations that have been here that sound like Kiwis. They've got the definite Kiwi accent, but also that warm feeling of inclusiveness.
Exactly, it's the inclusiveness and the respect that's important. It's not paying lip service. You know that lip service. I mean, you could be the most intellectual. You could have an intellectual discussion of the treaty, or your most intelligent person. But if it's just knowledge and lip service, and there's no practice, there's no actual.
Well, just for an example, you tell me how I would greet a Filipino person.
Okay, yeah. Oh, so we say kumusta. Okay, so that's like kumusta.
That sounds almost Spanish, eh? Kumusta?
Yeah, because of the 400 years of Spanish
classic example. Okay, so if I was to bastardize that, and I'm teaching my Philippine students, then I wouldn't, that lip service, like, oh, kamusta. It's very watered down. So you've got to get that guttural appreciation of how it sounds, because when you speak someone else's language, what I found is other indigenous people go, hey, they take an interest, say, your pronunciation is really good, your accent is awesome, but with a lot of other people that don't appreciate it, it's alien to me, because you want to know and compare it to yourself. That's the healthy interest that you should have for this diversity and inclusivity. Teaching that to others is very important.
A healthy interest and a positive outlook. It's not that that group is taking over me and I'm taking over them. It's a two-way relationship.
Absolutely,
because it says every people can come and live in New Zealand. So it's a wonderful opportunity for especially now. I mean, except for the 4 cases of COVID-19, we are much better than any other country in the world when it comes to COVID-19. And it's all because we have that respect. We have that,
it's that empathy as well. It's not sort of, I mean, we've seen cases where the focus has been on the economy and getting that money machine rolling again. And, now places are paying for it, so instances like this are disappointing and sad, but this is the real discussion at the moment. And you were talking about how do we apply that? What's our thought about this Treaty of Waitangi in a situation like this COVID lockdown again at level 3? And for me, it's that same kind of values and belief systems of inclusivity where, we're doing it for someone else. It's like a selfless thing. It's a sacrifice. It's a bit of discomfort for the benefit of someone else.
Exactly.
That's what it's all about. So not so much based on fear. Oh my gosh, they're going to take all the toilet paper. I'm not going to help them. Versus love. But if you live love over fear,
Mhm.
then you know, people would accuse you of sort of not being realistic. But
Mm.
I don't want to bother with the fear because it makes me do things that are selfish,
Mm.
and I won't benefit from it.
Mhm.
It'll eat
That's
me up. So
yeah, yeah.
basically, that's applying this inclusivity, valuing other people's cultures, that welcoming of other people to your space.
Mhm.
I think is the Treaty of Waitangi principles that has molded me into my practice.
Mhm.
You know, and you've
Yeah.
got that already. A lot of our other indigenous communities have got this
Mhm.
servitude, this
Mhm.
servicing. You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah. So
Helping,
I would
yeah.
ramble on all about it, but I think that's what Treaty of Waitangi
Yeah.
to me means in my current
In
practice.
current practice, in current
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
And you know, Chris, and for those of you who are watching and listening to us, if you apply for a job, there are jobs. I don't know. I've applied for some companies, and they asked me about the Treaty of Waitangi. So
Mm,
they wanted me to know how I understand and then how I interpret the treaty because it is important. It is an important document. And I found out when we started teaching diversity in the workplace, how
mm,
important the document is. It's
mm,
because you want you have a diverse culture, a diverse workplace,
mm,
and you have to have harmony, understanding, and respect.
mm,
And I always have the classic example of diversity with religious beliefs. Like
mm.
a Muslim will pray for 5 times a day. If
Yeah.
you are the boss and you don't understand that
Mm.
and you don't respect that, there will be like an not just an imbalance, but sort of a friction within your workplace. And
And the
then
community at large, you know,
community.
that's a human right issue now. So
Mm,
that's where we can be dangerous with lip service when you've got, oh, yeah, just throw, you know,
mm.
have certain things
Yeah,
to
just throw
acknowledge
it
the
in, you
culture.
know.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like what we were saying, that diversity and inclusive practice means that you make leeway. Might be a
Mm,
little bit of discomfort to the day, but you can bet your bottom dollar that he'd be a happier worker if
mm.
he's having his time of worship, you know,
Yes.
and there's
Mm.
no boundaries
Yeah,
to
and,
stop that
and
from
and
happening.
and you can always work around his morning tea break, afternoon
Of
tea break,
course.
you know, and he will be much willing to do that. But going back to us teachers, because we have a big majority of teachers in the Philippines watching us, the more is the treaty very important for us because we are in a classroom, so average size probably in New Zealand is less than, I mean, in the mainstream is maybe 20, 25 students, but they come from different ethnic groups. And of course, you have the Maori community, Pacifica, European, Asian, African, Latin American,
Yeah.
and all of them are in New Zealand because the treaty says we will accept people from other nations and their culture will be, respected.
Welcomed
So
and
you as a teacher now has to have a deeper understanding of this, the treaty.
mm,
That's why I'm very happy that Chris, with his very busy schedule, even during lockdown, was because I said, oh, you've been to the Waitangi grounds, and he has been teaching in all sectors of the academe, and he could really explain to us in simple terms
mm,
the value of the importance. And then when he told me offline, okay, we break it down into three. I said,
mm,
oh, that's a wonderful idea. And which brings me to the last part is what have we learned so far from what Chris
yeah,
and I have been talking about the treaty. I hope you've been jotting down those little bits of notes, and it doesn't have to be a complete document, Chris, right? It doesn't have,
yeah.
because it is saying
Absolutely.
what have we learned? So there might be things that you want to learn or you want to expect, or you want to learn more. That's the
Focus on,
time you
yeah.
could get in touch with Chris or me, and then we
Yeah.
can, we could like come up with like if you want a specific, really, how does it affect the
Mm.
COVID-19
And,
pandemic?
and we'll have links that you can, you know,
Hmm.
get in touch with us and put you to, because just if you just go to Google and you put down Treaty of Waitangi, and then it's got four dummies, four kids, four adults, four tertiary, you know, and some brilliant papers that have been written by Indigenous academics that have experienced it and seen changes throughout the years, you know. Yeah, because if you don't have a natural interest, then you'll be subscribing to the lip service stuff, which is fine if that's not important to you. But I know that what you get out of it is a self discovery yourself. You know, you're evolving as an educator as well, and to have that open mind means that you're up with the play with regards to how is it useful to me. How could it benefit this person I'm teaching? How could it benefit my teamwork? You know, if you look at the learner, if a student-centered learning especially, and you look at the culture that Māori have, it also gives you an alternative to what are the models of education that are important if you're teaching a Māori student. And that's, you know, the body, the spirit, you know, it's got all these elements, the family, the language, and the culture. And it's very similar to what I think everybody else has got as a model of education and health. And so you put those two things together, the wellness of the student and the wellness of their studying development, then I think you're on track. And then it also helps you as well to recognize that you are a treaty partner.
Yeah. And also breaking it down also to how is the treaty connected to literacy and to numeracy? You know, those things are quite important. So it's not just putting lip service. Yeah, you could memorize the. I even haven't memorized the treaty, but I'm trying to understand it more, putting it more into practice. You know,
and part of that watering down is just thinking, oh yeah, I've got to do the unit standard NZQA number 1357, and that's Treaty of Waitangi, you know. And some people will get that and all the degrees as long as your leg and still not actually practice it, you know, genuinely, even if they don't know. So I think, you know, our brothers and sisters out there who are teaching will grasp onto it. And if not, just develop a knowledge of history of the peoples here in New Zealand and how they would play the part. But also you'll stumble across kids' games and songs and fun activities, you know. And I think that's the best way that you can sort of get them doing a haka or a Maori song and making toys. There's a lot of stuff like that that will generate specific interest for those groups, you know, for those age groups. And more about team building and wellness of your staff and organization and yourself. You know, you apply some of those things to yourself from the Treaty of Waitangi interest. I think it makes you a better educator.
And I like the way one time I was in an activity with Chris, and then he started singing that song that, you know,
the men's part. I couldn't help myself. I started shouting, and it was you will do that. You will feel that once you start playing your songs and listening to examples. You'll enjoy it.
And I think the students will feel the genuineness of you as a tutor, as a teacher, when they see those things that you really have studied and understand. Passion for that, and that will enrich your teaching practice. And then that other song, Chris, the one that you translated, I mean, transposed the names of Onehunga.
So it was A, E, I, O, U, because those vowel sounds are similar to a lot of our indigenous people. So it's changing. Like there's a word for a suburb here called Mangere, and it's been watered down to mangry. You know, and if you're a person that appreciates and haven't subscribed to, oh well, you know, get lazy, I'm saying mangry too, and I'm from here. It's having that deeper understanding that you've got to correct it and make yourself say, oh no, there's mangere. So if I'm if I respect other people's names, you know, a lot of us end up being Raymond or, you know, Rachel or something, and our name's not that. It's just very easy for us to simplify for people. So I love those songs, and A, E, I, O, U is that song gives a fun activity. So they go, it's like to the song "Stupid Cupid, Stop Picking on Me." So A, E, I, O, U, A, E, I, O, U. But no, it's ahaka mana para tawanga pa. So it's got the consonant blends with the vowel sounds. So haka mana para tawanga pa will give them the muscles getting used to the pronunciation of these words, and it's fun. And so we did put all our suburbs in, and of course Mangere Otara, Takapuna, you know. If I usually do a really opposite way of doing it and singing the vowel sounds in the English vowel sound. So it goes A, E, I, you know, A, hey, ke me, ne, pe, de, te, weng, a, fe, e, he, ki, me, ne, be, you know, I, hi, ko, mine, I, pai, do, tai, wa, and then you say the suburb, it's like, mangere, Otara, and it gives you the scale or the catalyst, you know, the scale where you're saying it wrong, you're saying it right, you're engaged with that Kiwi learner, you know, and that's the same as your own language.
Yeah, and one thing about Chris, one thing about the Maori language and the Filipino language, there's some similarity in words and in the pronunciation, like mangere. Yeah, so we normally don't say mangere. It's like exactly the same. And also some of the words like waru, or well, that's my classroom. Waru is eight,
What is
right?
right? Yeah.
In the Filipino national language, it's walo. So walo. Fito is 5, so we have pito. Yeah, so
Our 5 is lima,
lima, yes,
and
5.
our 7 is pitu.
Pito, yes, and that's pito. That's why I'm trying to teach Chris also. He knows already salamat and but then it is like it is about my language, my culture, and then sharing it with other cultures, and then they share it with us. And we're only talking of language. We haven't talked of food yet, you know.
That's right. You wait till we talk about food. Oh my
There's a
gosh.
connection between the treaty and food. So yeah, so many things that we can do and talk about and enrich our teaching. That's what the purpose of Chris and I tonight is, to enrich our teaching. And if ever you come to a point where you need some information and some, you could always get in touch with us, and we can make it happen. You know,
point you in the right direction. At least if you're online, and there's a lot of material on this stuff, so you'll, you know, there's a lot of animations and you know perspectives. So it's really fun to learn with the kids about this subject.
And not only that, we as tutors, we may you can tell that probably, oh, you're senior tutors, but we still learn. We're still learning.
Yeah, of course. Of course, I'm still thinking about cooking, you know, some sort of food or learning something. I've got to read more. They always say, you know, readers are leaders. And I'm not reading very well at the moment. I should be reading a lot more. But I encourage people to read any material about the Treaty of Waitangi and how it applies to you and your practice.
Most of the things that we discuss, I think we were, Chris, it was before the first lockdown, around March 15. We were at Mount Albert. I think there was a workshop, and there were some people, and we had a copy of this one, the reading book about the treaty. So most of the things that we discussed came from this book, and it's something that we wanted to share with you guys. Chris, I'd like to thank you for again, spending some time with us. I really look forward to when the lockdown will be over and I can bring you to the Philippines and you can enjoy and experience real. Chris and I, we love to eat,
We do.
We have a seafood diet. When we see food, then we eat, seafood. Chris, thank you very much for your, input. It's always a pleasure. It's always, I feel blessed and enriched with your presence. And I like your backdrop, man.
So I'm we were talking about fiddling with our tech. So I would encourage people to get onto Zoom because it's really, really fun.
Yeah.
And of course, it's nice to get used to being on a screen. So if you're a bit shy, you can always, change it. Look at this one here.
Oh, that's so cute.
I recently got this photo from a mate, so it's an Avengers.
Oh, the Avengers. Okay.
And there, when I pretend I'm on holiday. Oh. I lie to everyone that's my ex-wife drinking.
Oh, the ex-wife.
But yeah, we could have a lot of fun with the stuff. We could put some things up for people to, to grab some important information or information of interest.
Yeah, and that's Step Up Now New Zealand. That's education specialist focusing on mental health, adult education, and training. Yes. So,
And honoring all these policies that are built from the treaty. Like you said, a lot of employers ask, do you know anything about Treaty of Waitangi? Okay, it's good if you've got a formal a paper on it, but the practice, it'll come out in your talk about your passion for how it means, what it means to you.
thank you very much again, Chris, and
Hope it helps.
we'll see you even during the lockdown. I guess we have other things. Chris and I are working on some things that we're going to share with you in the near future. Well, thank you very much, my friend.
Yeah.
Maraming salamat. So I'm saying thank you to our viewers, our listeners, who've been patiently listening and watching us. Thank you very much. Thank you. Take care and God bless. This has been your Kuya Rene in Netkapihan, Talakayan, and Chikahan.